Good morning everybody and welcome to the beautiful and sunny Südtirolian city of Bolzano for part 1 of my Gateway to the Dolomites series. And in this episode we're going to grab a car and drive from Munich through 3 different countries to get here, talk about why that's a poor metric of viewing things as we explore the town, and even see a 5,000-year-old mummy in the flesh. Let's go check it out. Good morning everybody. Now, do you ever just hop in your car, drive through Austria and straight into Italy? Well, me neither. But everyone else here in Munich, well, they do. So we've needed to get up extra early, about 6 o'clock, so we can hopefully beat them out onto the road and knock out this 3.5 drive to the Dolomites in peace. We'll see how well that goes. And so what are the logistics to getting to the Dolomites? Well, you know, I live in Munich, right? So I don't have a car. I always take the train everywhere, locally and regionally. So for day trips like this, I'm gonna have to rent one, which is why you've seen me use an app, not sponsored or anything, but called Share Now, which lets me just kind of pick up a car the way you'd pick up one of those e-scooters. However, there's a problem with that. I don't want to use a freewheeling app for a big expensive vacation where I'm going somewhere. But luckily you can pre-book ahead of time, and they'll even drop the car off somewhere near you, which is really convenient. And for €3.40 per day extra, they won't even call the cops on you when you take this bad boy over international borders. As you see, even with that pretty chill policy and the fact that the Schengen zone in Europe means you can actually just drive right across, you shouldn't. You need to stop not only for gas, but also to the little store that they have to buy a vignette, which is just a little fancy sticker. It lasts for 10 days minimum and costs you about €10, so kind of annoying because we're only driving through for a couple hours, but I guess I'll get to use it on the way back. And that's why we're abandoning the Mini Cooper we rented to drive down to the Südtirol in this random Trento parking lot. And now we're taking a train to Bolzano. So yeah, the Share Now Mini, it broke down halfway through our trip, scuttling so much of what we had planned. And it's even still an ongoing issue to this day with them. So I won't be talking about it to its conclusion in this video. In a future video, I'll come back and I'll tell you about the worst travel disaster I have ever experienced. Anyway, back to Bolzano. They call it a toll. I kind of think of it as a tax. A little frustrating for trips like this where all we're doing is passing through, but it's the only way I know to make sure I avoid a hefty fine. So I recommend you pick up one too. But now with the pit stops over, let's get back on the road. All right, so we've made it to the wonderful town of Bolzano. The bags are stowed, the car is parked, and I am ready to explore. It looks amazing. But how was the drive? Fantastic. We didn't hit a single lick of traffic the whole way, so we made it perfectly on time at 3.5 hours. But that doesn't mean you won't have any problems. So I'd still recommend leaving early, as those roads can get busy, especially in August. Now, if I was to be a bit more like some of the other travel vloggers, I'd probably be focusing really hard right now on how we went through 3 countries today and now we're in Italy. Can you believe it? However, I just don't find that useful. Arguably, I find it a little bit disingenuous, as if you zoom in on what we've really done, well, we left Oberbayern, Alpine Germany, and we went through Nordtirol, Alpine Austria, and now we're in Südtirol, Alpine Italy. And all of those regions, well, they share a deep cultural heritage, and they're a lot more alike than they'll ever be with Berlin, Vienna, or Rome. For example, all of them speak a dialect of German that they could understand between each other. It's taught in all of the schools, and even the place names in Südtirol in Italy have an Italian and a German name. Not to mention, when it's time for a spring or fall festival, you're gonna find people in Trachten, Dirndl and Lederhosen. Try wearing that in Rome. And so I think focusing on those national boundaries really just misses the whole point. And what I'm really excited to do in this series is explore an Alpine culture that I'm pretty familiar with in Germany and Austria, but find out what the Italian flair has done. Where are they similar and where are they different? And what better place to start that exploration than Bolzano, the gateway to the Dolomites. So I have been dreaming about sitting down at a Südtirolian restaurant since far before we planned this trip, as nothing could be more emblematic of the cultural melting pot that is Tyrolean culture, you know, where Germanic and Italian cultures crash into the Alps, than the food and drink itself. So for starters, let's talk about the humble Aperol Spritz, a drink I think is often completely misunderstood because people lack the cultural and historical context to understand it. I've heard a lot of tourists order this thing and then be quite sad that it's not a fancy cocktail with complex and interesting notes. So let's dive into why. Firstly, it's not the Aperol part that I'm interested in. That's purely Venetian, so not important for a discussion of Tyrolean culture. What is important is the Spritz, because it is the fusion of two very different drinking cultures. You see, up in the Alps, in beer country, and Munich is perhaps most famous for it, drinking 2 liters of beer a night, completely normal, completely common. However, try doing that here in wine country. 2 liters of wine will get you on the floor, and there's no getting used to that. So what do? You throw in a little splash, a spritz of mineral water to bring the alcohol content down, creating wine you can drink just like beer. This is a Tyrolean lager and should be drunk just the same because it's cold, crisp, and not too complex that your tongue gets tired. You can have a few liters of these. And over the course of this series, I expect that's exactly what I'm gonna do.
So this is our first time having proper Tyrolean food, and I'm really excited to sort of experience this fusion we were talking about between Alpine and Italian culture. So I got these Steinpilz Knödel. So Knödel are really popular in Bavaria. I get them all the time. It's like a bread dumpling, but this is with Steinpilze, which are mushrooms in German. And I'm really excited because I think mushrooms are really popular in this region and so flavorful. So I'm really excited for this. Ben got a Schlutzkrapfen dish, which is kind of like the Tyrolean version of ravioli or pierogi. It also looks really, really good. I don't know what's in it, but let's eat.
Now, definitely one of the coolest and most unique experiences you can have here in Bolzano is to go to the Südtirol Archaeological Museum, better known as the Iceman Museum. Heavily recommended to me by Camille, who's already been and can't wait to go back. You see, back in 1991, a couple, much like ourselves, was hiking through those alpine passes we drove through earlier today, and they found what they thought was a rogue hiker, but instead it was a 5,000-year-old corpse that was preserved in the ice. The importance of this find cannot be overstated, as quite frankly, it redefined our anthropological timelines with his copper axe that he shouldn't have been able to have. Not just the body and the axe though, he was preserved with all kinds of gear, a little medicinal pouch, a half-worked-on bow, a bunch of arrowheads, and some classy assless chaps. And all of those artifacts are ready for you to see in person, including the body itself, which is held inside a special refrigerated cell. However, sadly, you can't film any of it. And as much as I would love to take you with me, because it's going to be an amazing time, I just can't. But I wanted to include it in the YouTube video anyway, even though perhaps it's not the most interesting content, can't show you any of it. It's just a glowing recommendation from me, and you should definitely check it out. I mean, you know me and my small, local, specific museums. 10 out of 10. And in fact, Ötzi himself is an emblematic example of that shared cultural heritage I was talking about earlier. You see, when they found him, he was carrying a flint dagger with a type of stone and work that's emblematic of the people from between Lake Garda all the way to Baden-Württemberg. So thanks, Ötzi, for illustrating my point. Now, after the wonders of the Iceman Museum, it's about time I get myself another spritz, maybe a light snack. And I know just the place, my absolute favorite lunchtime and evening cafe in all of Bolzano, the Fish Bank. Now, maybe to some of you locals out there, it's a little generic, it's a little basic, a little cliche, but I really just don't care. This quirky pit stop in the heart of Bolzano, with its mismatched furniture, hand-painted signs, and an overflowing plant pot garden, man, it's just a pleasure to visit, and I find myself going back again and again. It's a good vibes only sort of place with cold, vibrant drinks, perhaps glacially slow service, and a bruschetta menu for days. So, you know, don't come here 30 minutes before your train leaves, but do come here and carve out some time to sit back and relax. 10 out of 10. Now, I'm no machine, so after all of that, the wonderful museum, a couple cocktails, and of course, the early morning and drive, I did need a quick pit stop in this lovely little hotel room we've got, but now I'm ready to hit the town again. And I'd really say one of the biggest takeaways from just walking around Bolzano today is that the architecture really is a feast for the eyes. The cultural mixing of Italy and Germany that's happening here in Südtirol really stands out compared to the other regions that we've been going to. It's definitely added that twist that I was looking for. And it's amazing. From all the jitties, the little fruit market behind me. This place is a pleasure to just walk around. Now, I am really glad that I took a rest back in the hotel earlier. However, if that's not an option for you, if you're just day tripping or just don't really want to go back to the room, we've got this. And this is something I love to see in cities and villages. Just tons of green space. A place for you to relax with your friends, whoever you're traveling with, maybe just by yourself with a podcast, and no one's trying to take any of your money. And from the right angle when you're walking around these parks, you can see the Dolomites. And you know, I'm loath to admit it, but they do look pretty special compared to all of the other Alpine mountains I've seen. So I'm really excited to get at that tomorrow in part 2 of the whole series. So I have had an absolute blast here in Bolzano today, really enjoying this strange intermixture of so many different cultures. Southern Italian coming up along with Central German, all coalescing on the Alps. It's been so cool seeing the differences and similarities, going from our Aperol spritzers that we can drink like beer and seeing Lederhosen on the other corner. It's really, really something. However, we're not done yet. This is just part 1 of our Dolomite series here in Bolzano. Like, comment, subscribe if you've enjoyed it, but most importantly, stick around and here's a sneak peek for what's coming up next in part 2.
And then Ben got a what? Is it not good?
Yum yums.
Yum yum.
These are yum yums. You're like yum. It's like your elementary school teacher's coming out.